I think what's really cool about sports and the women's game and women's soccer is that like it really doesn't matter your age. Like if you're good, you'll play. If you have something to say, people will listen.
Hi everyone, we are here with Naomi Girma, a defender on Chelsea FC and a member of the U.S. Women's National Team. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So you have had a big move in the past, couple of weeks. In January, you were signed to Chelsea. You moved to London. How has it been so far?
It's been great so far. Like you said, it's a big move for me coming from California, but it's been great. I feel like I've been welcomed with open arms, and it's been so exciting to be here.
Was playing in the European leagues something that you thought about for a long time? Was this an unexpected move for you? What was the mindset behind it?
I think I always knew I would want to come at some point. It was just waiting for the right opportunity and waiting for the right club, and I feel like Chelsea is that for me.
That's super exciting. We'll talk about all you are, kind of doing with Chelsea, the movement behind women's sports and how that's kind of pulled you here with your transfer fee that kind of made a lot of news. But before we get into those sorts of things, I want to know a little bit more about you as like a human. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself growing up, kind of finding a love for soccer?
Yeah, I grew up in San Jose, California, and I started playing soccer pretty young, probably 3 or 4 years old, and my older brother and my dad both loved it, so I was immediately thrown in, and I fell in love with it too. It was always just something I enjoyed doing, something I was good at, and I just loved being around my teammates and competing together.
And a lot of young kids, especially across America, are thrown into sports when they are younger. But when did you realize that this is something that wasn't just a hobby like it is for so many people, but something that you could really build a career out of?
I realized that pretty late, to be honest. I played a lot of different sports growing up. I knew soccer was my favorite pretty early, and I knew that if I had to pick one, it would be soccer. So I think probably around middle school is when I started focusing only on that and kind of let all other sports fall away. But I think going into college and playing against different schools and comparing myself to a lot of players across the country is when I realized I could go far on this. And I think just having the right people around me supporting me made a big difference and helped me realize that this is something I want to do.
Yeah. How do you balance your love for, which I'm sure you still have, but also knowing that it's something that now is your livelihood? I think that that's for creatives, for athletes, it's kind of a hard transition sometimes to realize that this isn't just something for fun anymore. How has that been in your experience?
I kind of just tell myself it's still for fun.
Yeah.
And that normally helps me when I feel like I'm under a lot of pressure or anything like that. I think a lot of times you just have to remember why you first started playing, and you remember why you fell in love with the game, and that's what keeps you going. So I think it can be a hard balance, but I just try to keep having fun while I'm doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Looking back at the Naomi that was starting to play soccer at age 4, realizing in middle school that you were good, would she have ever expected you to be where you are today?
No, absolutely not.
What were your thoughts when you were younger in terms of future goals? Did you have other career goals besides soccer, or what was your kind of vision for who you might turn into?
I don't know. I think I just always had college on my mind. Education has been a really big part of my childhood and something my parents always put a huge focus on. So I was really passionate in school as well. So I knew I wanted to go to college. I hoped in college I would figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't someone who had that dream job from a really young age. So I think college was the goal, and then go on from there. And I feel really lucky to have found soccer and have found something that I love and I'm also good at.
Yeah, definitely. I think about that all the time, and I feel like growing up too, my high school graduation was always the future date, and then now that I'm I don't know.
I'll figure it out then.
Exactly. Yeah. So why did you decide on Stanford? What made that soccer program and the school something that you were interested in?
I think Stanford is just amazing, and I honestly just remember the first time I went on campus and I was like, oh, it's beautiful, I want to go here. But beyond that, just the coaches, they recruited me in high school, and just knowing that culture of excellence that it has, it was just something I wanted to be a part of. And I think looking back, I didn't know that much when I made that decision, but I'm so grateful that it worked out that way. And I think the people I met there, lessons I learned, so many things that I took away from Stanford, are things that are just they've just had such a huge impact on me.
Yeah, totally. What are some of those examples of things that you kind of carry with you today?
I mean, lots of classes. I don't know if I'm using that every day, but I did.
But it's back there somewhere.
It's in there. Just like relationships, friendships with professors, mentors, teammates, friends, classmates, like so many people that have touched my life in different ways, and a lot of people that I'm still connected to now. And I think it's nice, like pretty much anywhere I go to travel, like there's someone that I went to school with living there.
Yeah,
so I just love that we have that community still, and it's something I can always rely on.
Yeah. You were then drafted #1 in the NWSL draft. What was that experience like?
I was very excited. I was remote because of COVID, so I was actually in London with my friends.
Okay, full circle.
Yeah. And it was a really cool moment, I think, like for me and for my family. I just remember my parents being like, I can't believe you come this far. And I think it's like one of those moments where you stop and realize like, this is really cool, and I'm proud of all the work I've put in to get here. And my family too, I think they just felt like, wow, like I can't believe like this turned into this now. So it was a really exciting moment for me. And I think to go to San Diego and start my pro career was like a great spot for me.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that a little bit, being a California girl through and through, growing up there, going to school there, and then ultimately being drafted there. What was the experience like? How would you describe like the culture of San Diego Wave and just kind of the player that you became over the years that you were playing there?
I mean, I'm so grateful to have ended up there. Like you said, I'm a California girl, so I was very happy to be staying in the state. And San Diego was great. It was an expansion team the year I joined, so there was a lot of transition, not just for me, but for the whole organization. So I think we kind of just took it all in stride. And even though we were a team in transition, we had a lot of veteran players who I could look up to and who really guided me throughout that first year, and honestly second and third year too. So I think having them there helped me like see what it's like to be a true professional and like what kind of player I wanted to be, both on and off the field. So I learned a lot there, and I think similar to Stanford, I take away so many great relationships leaving too.
You mentioned there that you kind of realized how to be a professional as opposed to, you know, like you said before, like you were in a lot of ways recreational, even though it was kind of becoming your career.
Yeah.
How have you changed as a professional athlete versus a collegiate athlete as a, you know, amateur athlete before that?
I think the attention to detail at the pro level is so different, and I think that in film and recovery and everything that you're doing, there's just a lot more attention to detail. And I think the earlier you can figure out what works best for you and how you want to take on all of those things, the better. And I think realizing that I needed to like hone in on that early on really helped me.
Yeah, definitely. You recently, like we have been talking about, moved to London to come play for Chelsea. This, like the expansion team, I think is a really huge indication of the growth of women's sports. You had a $1.1 million transfer fee to come over here, which was record breaking. And I know that you're not in it for the money, but I think it does speak a lot to the value that people are putting behind female athletes today. How do you see the growing space of, you know, women's sports? I feel like so much has changed over the past couple of years. What's it looked like from your perspective?
I think it's grown so much. I think even from when I was a kid watching to now being a part of it, and then now being 4 years in, I think I've seen so much growth happening, and I think it's really exciting to see where it's going. And I think now it's like on us and our generation to make sure we keep pushing it. But yeah, it's an exciting time, and I think like I'm like grateful to be a part of the game at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any expectations for what you think the field will look like in the future, or things that you kind of see coming up right now that you're excited to continue building within the women's sports space?
That's a good question. I think like I would hope that we see it growing, but I think it is growing a lot in like specific areas, specific countries, and hopefully that becomes more widespread and there's more of like a standard that can be held across all leagues and all countries and all international teams and everything, so that everyone's getting that same treatment and is being treated like a true professional, like they should be. Yeah,
100%. So since you have become part of the Chelsea squad, I want to know a little bit about how the transition has been for you. Like you're talking about, the sports world is very different depending on like the region you're in, the demographic that you're talking to. What have been some of the biggest differences since moving here that you've noticed?
I'll just go like culturally.
Totally. I mean, there are so many changes.
Yeah, there are so many changes. I think when you move countries, it's obviously the same language, but I think there are like some words in there where I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I've never heard that. We have a lot of different terminology, but It's been great. I think the staff and players at Chelsea have made the transition feel really smooth for me. And I think stepping into a culture where you can feel that people care about each other and just genuinely want the best for each other and want to win is something that always feels good.
Yeah, you are known as the Secretary of Defense, at least in the U.S. I don't know if they call you that here. But,
I don't think we have that here.
But I want to know about building this like name for yourself. Obviously, a lot of hard work on the soccer field comes into play, but also a lot of just like brand awareness, being in front of people, you know, either partnering with other brands or just being known with your fans. How have you gone about creating a personal brand for yourself as you've built your career in soccer?
It's been pretty natural, honestly. I think coming into it, that wasn't something I really thought about,
Yeah.
but I think as you start playing and you play with the US, like it becomes more of a thing that you need to be aware of. And I think one thing that I've tried to do is when partnering with brands, if there's ever an opportunity for community outreach or a way to give back, like I try to be intentional about that. And I think brands do a good job of coming to us and being like, what are you passionate about? What do you want to focus on? And I think trying to do as many things that can also like serve the community and like help me use my platform for things I want to talk about is a way I try to go about it.
Yeah, and it's probably more authentic to you too.
Yeah,
then, if
100%.
It's a partnership that makes sense and aligns on both ways.
Yeah.
You recently partnered with Nike, or you've been a partner of Nike's for, you know, multiple different kind of versions, campaigns, things like that. What has that partnership looked like?
Well, they have great cleats for starters, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I think Nike has always been a leader in all of sports, but women's sports too. And the way they support their athletes is something that I wanted to be a part of. And I think most recently being a part of their United Pack, which features 6 women's soccer players globally, is something that is really cool. And I think just shows how much they're investing in the women's game and want the women's game to continue to grow and move forward. So I think being a part of a brand that aligns in that way is really meaningful to me.
And another big thing that you focus on is mental health in the athletic space, especially with your work with Common Goal. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you are doing with them and kind of how you're pushing this forward?
So I've been working with Common Goal for a few years, and we launched a project called Create the Space, pretty much circling around mental health in soccer. And I think I had seen a lot of things where people were talking about mental health, but I wanted to start something that was like action driven and could really have an impact. And what we do is pretty much try to bring different mental health like skills and tools to youth coaches so that they can then teach the kids that they're coaching. And I think the thought behind that is like as a kid you spend so much of your time with your coach growing up, and if they can have a positive impact and be another support for a kid, it can really change someone's life.
And there's some toxic coaches out there. As a former athlete myself, I know. So I totally understand how important that is from the youth level up. In terms of connecting with these young audiences, so much about the rise in women's sports right now is about getting young girls to see that there is a place for them in athletics. Can you walk me through kind of what your relationship has been like with your fans, how you're kind of pushing this forward as well, that this is like we've been talking about, like a career you can build, not just a hobby that a girl should have?
Yeah, I think a lot of that has happened naturally just with viewership and platforms that women's sports are now being shown on. And I think we all try to engage with our fans after games, like taking photos, signing autographs and different things. It's always so exciting to see them. But yeah, I think like for me, I just try to share my story as much as I can, just to show like it doesn't matter your background or if you've always wanted to do this or wherever you started, like you can always make it there if you work hard and are determined and yeah, just stick with it. So yeah, I think that's my way of trying to show like little girls, like even if, you know, your parents can't put you on the best club team, like you can still make it far and you can still make the best of what you have.
Right. And as you are now a mentor in a lot of ways to a lot of young girls coming up and a lot of young players coming up, you have also played with some soccer like legends, been coached by soccer legends. Is there anyone in your career that you feel like you would not be here today without them?
Oh, yes. Well, minus my family. I had a club coach, Bob Joyce, who like was the first coach who was like, you're really good, and encouraged me to try out for like ODP, which is Olympic Development Program in Northern California. And that kind of like started my whole path of going to youth national team camps and getting recruited to Stanford and then national team and everything from there. So I think just having that push at the start and being like, no, you're actually good, like you should do this, was something that changed my life.
How do you describe yourself as a leader in this space today, both on the field and off?
I think in the space I try to lead by example with what I'm doing, what I'm talking about. Like I think in the way I play too, I try to lead by example and use my voice and my platform when I can too.
For other young people out there who are looking to, build businesses, since this is Forbes, a lot of our audience is aspiring to build businesses, be leaders in their own industries or their own careers, or just be innovative in some way. Like, you've taken on these different projects, you've started using, like you've been talking about, your voice to speak to what you care about. What's your best piece of advice for other people out there looking to make a difference and turn, a career into something that can be, for good?
I would say put people first. I learned that was a theme throughout most of my business classes in school. And it was funny to see how much it rang true to me when I was trying to do things with soccer or with mental health or whatever it was. And I think just when you have that group of people around you who you feel like you're aligned with and you share values with, it can be really fun and more impactful when you're trying to build something together.
My last question for you, since we are talking about the 30 under 30 list here, being youthful is obviously a huge part of sports, but in life, there's a lot of different thoughts about what it means to be young and leading industries. How do you see youth playing into your career today?
Yeah, I think being young in this space, I guess it's helped me because I've been able to see a lot and learn a lot from other people. And I think when you have that youthful outlook, it can help you just soak things in because you don't feel like you know what's right or the way things should go. So I think it's helped me in that way. But I think what's really cool about sports and the women's game and women's soccer is that like it really doesn't matter your age. And that's true both on the field and off the field. Like if you're good, you'll play. If you have something to say, people will listen. So yeah, I think it's helped me. And then also in the same way, I feel like it's just been about like who I am and what I want to do with it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was awesome to hear all about your very exciting career, and I cannot wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you.